Blessings and welcome to Eartheart Radio. Finally beginning to awaken from the illusion of separateness and broadcasting live from the KSKQ studios in beautiful Ashland, Oregon. Here's your host, Derek Moody.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Eartheart Radio Show. That's right. Thanks for tuning in with me today. The week certainly did flow by real quickly. It feels like I was just sitting here.
Peace on Earth. You're at the Eartheart Radio Show on KSKQ. KSKQ.
Whoa, we already know that. Pardon me, folks. Just having a couple of issues, but that's okay. I appreciate you being here and for your patience. I am Derek Moody, and again, I feel like I was just sitting here talking with Mike Ward about crystals just a few minutes ago, but man, it's been a week. So today is a new day, and I will play some fun music. I've got some positive news stories today, and I'll be spotlighting a saint, as always. Today, I'll be discussing Catherine of Siena. As for my guest today, I had him on the line a few minutes ago. He's in Mexico, and he said, call me back in a couple of minutes, but I lost the connection. So it's going to be funny because when I go to call Gary Gautier, it's going to be live, and you're going to hear the whole thing. So you're going to hear some real live radio that's not always as planned, but that's okay. As for my guest, I met him online back in the fall of last year when we were both a member of a certain social media group online, and we still are. We started talking, and I found out he was an author. Not only that, but Gary Gautier, with an MA from UT Austin and a PhD from CU Boulder, has taught writing and literature at the University of Colorado and LSU. He has published novels, poetry, children's and scholarly books, literary criticism, and book reviews. Yeah, the guy has done it all, I say. Gary has also hitchhiked through 35 of the United States and 16 countries. He has run 2 marathons, and he even spent 6 months as a chef in a French restaurant. I'd like to find out more about that. The bottom line is I was going to say, let's talk to Gary Gautier now, but we got to call him. And let's see, he's in Mexico, and to his credit, he says sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm literally dialing the phone right now as we speak, and it's ringing. I think we're going to be okay. I think so. Gary,
you there?
Hi, Gary. I'm glad I got you.
How you doing, brother? Good to talk to you, man. I didn't hear your introduction. I hope you didn't say anything too good about me.
Oh, I said all kinds of good stuff, and when we post this on the YouTube page, you'll get to hear it all.
Oh, man, that's good. Looking forward to it, man. I enjoyed your show last week. I hope Mike's Crystal Shop is doing okay. I know times are kind of rough for retailers right now.
Mike's Crystal Shop, I know it got at least 1 or 2 orders from listeners after hearing him on the air last week. So that really tickled me, man, to see that happen that quickly,
That's great, man.
Hey, before I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Before we get into talking much, I would like to let people know that that Gary is currently in Mexico, residing in the sister city of Ashland, Oregon. Literally, that's our sister city. And would you care to tell about Guanajuato?
Guanajuato, man, it's a great little place. I'm sure I haven't been to Ashland, but I'm sure it's nice up there too. Guanajuato's in central Mexico. It's a university town. Lots of little galleries and venues and quirky little movie houses and cool people. I'm guessing it's a little bigger than Ashland, but it's a university town, not kind of like a Mexican version of Boulder. I used to live in Boulder for 10 years.
I lived in Greeley, Colorado.
But other than that, lots of pedestrian-friendly zones, just cool people. It's a great little place. So if anybody in Ashland wants to check out the sister city, I recommend it, man. We got an airport nearby.
I was looking online, researching Guanajuato, Mexico, and it looks a whole lot like Ashland. It's just a lot of culture, a lot of fun stuff going on in the streets, a lot of characters.
I lost some of that. Let's see.
Oh, I said Guanajuato reminds me a lot of Ashland with the characters and a lot of the color and the scenery and things going on.
And you're fading in and out, Derek, but I heard part of that, and it's probably true. I mean, we have a lot of pedestrian-friendly sections downtown. We have a lot of street performers. And I would guess that the feeling is a little bit like a Mexican version of Ashland.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the audio seems to be coming in and out, but did you get all of that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, you're coming in loud.
Also, I'll mention about I'm about 50 miles from where the great beat hippie icon Neil Cassidy died beside the railroad track.
Oh, wow. And if you've
next town over.
Yeah, and if anyone's read the book On the Road, of course, that was based on the life of Neil Cassidy.
Right. Yeah. So Neil spent some time down here and in fact died down here. So
wow.
He's in the next city over, San Miguel de Allende. And that's a nice little city too, but Guanajuato's the place for me. Plus it's the sister city of Ashland, man. So
now, before we talk about your book, Hippie, can I ask you a question? Are you or were you a hippie?
Yeah, good question, Derek. And my values were definitely formed in the hippie era. I was actually a little bit too young to go to Summer of Love or to Woodstock, but I was old enough to watch it on TV. I remember Woodstock 1969, the media was eating it up.
Yeah.
Every night there were live shots of Woodstock. I guess that was like Walter Cronkite days. But every night, man, I'd be sitting at that TV and my grandma would be yelling and cursing at the TV about these damn filthy hippies. And I'd be sitting there, man. I'd be sitting there quietly thinking, man, I can't wait to join that scene in a few years. So I wasn't in the primary period there, but, just a few years later, the month that I got out of high school, I hitchhiked off from New Orleans to New York to Montreal, and I kind of just threw myself right into the middle of the scene throughout the 70s. So my values were definitely formed by the hippie scene of the late 60s. Although I actually did not start living the lifestyle until the 70s. But of course, hitchhiking around the country in the 70s, you had lots of friends who were Vietnam War veterans or people who had been to Woodstock or the Summer of Love. So
yeah,
I spent a lot of time soaking it up, and those values have always remained at my core. So I would consider myself a hippie at the core, although I was a little too young to actually make the scene in the 60s.
Now, let me ask you this, Gary. How old are you?
I'm 62.
Okay, so I'm about 12 years younger than you. So, yeah, we had a little bit different footing as far as timing.
Right. You were coming in right at the punk scene, man.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I was kind of in between, but I was more in the hippie scene, so I got a little bit more of the flower child in me.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, when I was 10, 12 years old, I was watching the hippies on TV. And then I got out and threw myself into the middle of the scene and, interacted with a lot of Vietnam War vets and Woodstock vets. And it was really about 5 or 6 years later that the punk scene started happening.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit in between, and I had friends on both sides. But my early ideas were formed by the Woodstock generation.
Yeah, I'm a 50-50 kind of guy. I literally have one foot in that whole neo-60s sort of world, and also in the punk rock world. So
yeah, I lean more toward the old flower child, but I tell you, the funny thing about the punks when they emerged in the late 70s, from a distance, the punk rock scene seemed to an old hippie. It seemed a little kind of belligerent.
Yeah. Or
something. It's a little bit too belligerent. But every time I got up close to those guys, man, we made fast friends.
Yeah.
I remember that in Austin, the Skunks in the late 70s, one of the really early punk bands, their stage presence was very belligerent. But I started hanging around with those guys, and man, it was like instant brothers and sisters in the counterculture.
You know what I've noticed,
so I really
Gary?
connected.
I've noticed that there's not much difference between like the hippie and the punk culture, except maybe the beat of the music and the style of dress.
Yeah, I think that could be right. The beat of the the beat of the music and the style of dress. But as I say, I notice whenever I get up close with those guys, we really connect instantly.
Well, we all have the same values, I believe. I think we all have the same values and loves and likes. Both the counterculture movements.
I think so too. Yeah.
I have a question from listener Don in Omaha, Nebraska. He wants to know what you teach in Mexico.
Well, now I'm teaching English as a second language. Back in the U.S., before I quit my, I was an academic teacher. I was a teacher at universities in the U.S. for 10 years. Then I was a senior technical writer for 15 years. And then I threw everything away and got out the old backpack and started hitchhiking around again. I have hitchhiked 14 countries since turning 60. I think that puts me in the top bracket for my age group, man.
How cool.
But so then, when I was back at the U.S., I was teaching literature, cultural history, surveys of poetry and fiction. But since I've been on the road, I just teach English as a second language. I taught that in Germany for a year and a half, and now I'm teaching English as a second language.
Have you run into
Mexican University?
Have you run into many people from Ashland, Oregon, in Guanajuato?
I have not. There's quite a few gringos here.
Hello?
We have a lot of Canadians here, and we have quite a few U.S. Expats, but I have not run into anyone from Ashland. I found out about the Sister City thing online, but it's not a very visible. You guys need to come down here and open an office, man, because it's not very visible.
That's a great idea. I'd love to come to Guanajuato.
I think I lost.
I'm still here. Hello? Hello?
I lost you for a minute there,
Oh, okay.
Dad.
Hey, man, how has your book Hippies been received so far, Gary?
I'm happy with it. I'd like to sell more copies, but all the reviews I got online and on the site are all pretty good. There's different kinds of feedback I get from different people, but I had an initial rush of sales, and then now I have a little action every month. It's not I don't sell in big bursts unless I do some kind of marketing, which it's hard to get around to the marketing side, but I have it in bookstores in New York, Chicago, Austin, Denver, New Orleans. So it's out there in the bookstores, and it's making a dent. But honestly, Derek, I do it more for the love than the money.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, huh?
If you don't love writing, when younger writers, not that I'm a great, super successful writer or anything, but I'm getting up in years, and younger writers ask me, and I say, look, don't do it for the money, do it for the love. If the money comes, great. If the recognition comes, great. But if you're in it for the money, you're going to have a life of frustration, probably.
Yes. I always say that you should think with your heart and not with your wallet,
Yeah. And I'll take the money if it comes, but if you're in it for that, there's just too many roadblocks to your happiness.
Yeah, it's a thin, fine line between, labor of love and having to have the cash too, and hopefully it's a balance,
And you, as a musician, I'm sure you can relate to the old adage, don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
The book's doing all right. I'm selling copies every month. It's doing okay. I'm getting positive feedback from people through my blog and other venues, but I'm not ready to quit my day job.
Yeah. Well, it's you're a very, very compelling writer. The book is intriguing. It's very unique with very well developed characters. Seems to be a mix of fiction and nonfiction, so it's a very interesting book to read. I loved the fact that you had something in your book called the tan acid, because at Woodstock, everyone makes fun of how the brown acid was so bad, and then you talk about tan acid. I just found that to be funny.
That's correct, the brown acid. Yeah, that's right. It was Wavy Gravy's birthday yesterday or day before yesterday.
I don't know, but the tan acid made me laugh.
I know. Yeah, I was thinking I needed a. It was a spin-off LSD, right? It was a unique spin-off drug.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite thinking of the brown acid and the brown acid announcements at Woodstock, at least not consciously. But I needed something, a unique hook to distinguish it from the regular main line of LSD.
Yeah.
As far as the fiction, nonfiction goes, there's a lot. I would consider the book historical fiction, which means it's fiction, but like all historical fiction, one of the primary concerns is to recreate a real historical moment in time.
Yeah.
In this case, 1969, 1970. All my characters are fictional, but the objective is to create a very realistic snapshot of that very real moment in time, 1969, 1970.
Yeah.
And to do it not in the way that a history book would do it, but to do it in a way where the reader gets inside the feelings and the hearts and the minds of the characters who are actually living through that period.
Yeah.
And coming of age in that period. And I will say, although there is no one-to-one correspondence between any character in the book and the characters that I knew back then, but there is a general correspondence. If you look at the configuration of characters in the novel, it's very close to the configuration of characters I was hanging around with back in the day,
That was one of my questions, yeah.
Yeah, there's no one-to-one correspondence, but it's definitely, to a very large extent, it reflects a general correspondence to the kinds of people and the kinds of concerns and the kinds of the beauties and the risks that go along with that lifestyle. I did experience that back in the day. So it's marginally autobiographical in that sense.
Yeah, and the characters are living in a makeshift commune. You've got characters like Ragman and Jasmine and, of course, Ziggy. Did you ever live in a commune yourself, Gary?
No, I mean, as in the novel, the definition of commune is kind of blurry, and I know the people I've talked to that went through that period, there's the real narrow definition of commune, which would include like Wavy Gravy's hog farm,
right,
and the farm in Tennessee. I mean, those are real communes, but I can't tell you, Derek, how many people I knew back in the early 70s who were living in a house with 5 or 6 people, and which people were living in the house would change from week to week. You got these 5 this week, and the next week 3 of the same people and 3 different people, and then a couple of hippies from Milwaukee on the couch for a month. And people would call that the commune.
Yeah.
And I lived in that situation frequently.
I
never lived in the real deal like Wavy Gravy and those guys have. I never really lived in that situation.
It's amazing.
I visited the farm in Tennessee and spent a few days at the farm in Tennessee, and those guys are the real deal, like the Wavy Gravy thing.
Well, it's amazing because Wavy has been a guest on this show before, and he's still got the hog farm going after all these years. It was such a testament to just faith, man, and determination and love. Those guys are still the same people, basically, if not better people today.
Yeah, I know, and they're still spreading the same ideals and the same kind of love that you saw in the 60s.
Yep.
It's like people wonder sometimes if the hippie movement somehow lost or if the hippie movement was defeated.
I don't think so.
I think not at all, man. On the one hand, you have these people like Wavy Gravy and the farm in Tennessee. You have these really guys who are right at the center of the hippie movement that still have their humanitarian wing. I mean, Wavy Gravy's got his summer camp, and these guys are still out there doing the humanitarian things that they started in the 60s.
Yeah.
Not to mention, actually, a lot of the shit we take for granted today, culturally, are things that started in the 60s.
Yep.
The civil rights movement, the modern feminists, the gay rights movement.
Organic foods.
The whole Eastern religions.
Yoga.
The whole idea that you now have a checkbox that says spiritual but not religious. That whole thing. A lot of that stuff started in the 60s. Even just going to work wearing jeans and tennis shoes, and look at the music scene, how the 60s laid the foundation for what's still true today. I think of 1962, the number one hit was Elvis Presley's Return to Sender.
That's
and,
right.
You know, I love Elvis. You saw my picture at Elvis's house.
Yeah, you were sitting on the front porch of Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis's birthplace.
That's correct.
I recognized that
But
so quickly. I was like, oh my God, Gary's at Elvis's.
Oh, yeah, you've been there too. But, you know, you think just a few years later at Woodstock, you picture Joe Cocker's band on stage or Carlos Santana. If you went to the park today and there was a rock concert and a band like that Carlos Santana or Joe Cocker band was on stage, they would fit right in today.
That's right.
I mean, they really laid but if you go back just 5 years earlier, Elvis seems like a million miles away, man. I love Elvis. But culturally, he would not fit on the stage at a rock concert today.
Yeah.
The same way those guys in 1969 were. What that tells me is that the hippies laid the foundation for much of what we take for granted today.
Amen. How long did it take you to write the book, Hippies?
That's another interesting question. You know, writing strategies and processes for me vary with each book. I've written a couple of novels, screenplays, children's books, academic books, and, you know, it varies a lot. In the case of Hippies, external circumstances to a large extent are driving the bus. I was still working my corporate job when I started that novel. So I was working 40 hours a week, and 2 or 3 times a week, I would find 3 or 4 hours to work on the novel. So, I got the novel together over a period of maybe a year. And then I had to finish it up during my more recent hitchhiking trips in Germany. So it took me maybe, I would say, a year and a half, but that's deceptive because if I were solely writing a novel without a full-time job on the side, things may have progressed much, much more quickly.
Yeah,
understood. Because I have so many logs in the fire, and I'm always basically working full-time. So I would say for me, on average, it takes me about a year to write a novel.
It's a balancing act for sure, man. A big balancing act for you.
Right. And
also, I was wondering, do you have any spiritual beliefs?
Well, I would probably check that box, spiritual but not religious. I mean, growing up, especially in the wake of the hippie movement, I grew up in a very Catholic city, New Orleans. Yeah. And I still find inspiration in some of the Catholic writers like Saint Ignatius Loyola, Saint Thomas Aquinas. There's still some inspiration there. But to be honest, I am, I would say, a religious pluralist.
Okay.
I try to take a little bit from every religion. I've learned a lot from Buddhism, from Catholicism, from Jewish theologians, and also from even atheist philosophies as well, existentialism and other atheist philosophies, Marxism.
And that's that's what the show's all about.
My strategy, I try to put in this nutshell for you, Derek. I build my spiritual house with a full toolbox. If I were going to just stick to one religion, I feel like I would be building my spiritual house with one tool. But to me, if you want to build a house, you got to have a whole toolbox.
Wow, I love that. I've never heard that analogy before.
Yeah, that's an original Gautier. You can use it there, man.
Thank you. But, well, Gary, I'm starting to run out of time, but I want to make sure that people understand that you can be reached and your books are available. Now, being community radio, I can't say, hey, go buy this book, but I can say, where are these books available, Gary? How can people find stuff?
Well, first of all, anybody can find me, including my email address, on my website, GaryGautier.com. And I'm sure they can find the spelling on your website.
Yes.
But GaryGautier.com.
So that's the best place. Starting to cut out, I think, a little bit, Gary. Hello? Uh-oh, we might have lost Gary. Hello. If we did, it's a good time because I was going to wrap it up anyway, but I hate to do it this way. Gary, I still got you on the line. Can you hear me? I'm hoping we can just get him back on to say goodbye at least before I have to disconnect. I don't want to do that and have no sense of closure. You're listening to KSKQ Radio and the Eartheart Radio Show. I'm interviewing Gary Gautier, author, based in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is Ashland, Oregon's sister city. But I think we might have lost Gary. I'm trying to figure it out. Gary? Gary, hello. Wow. Yeah, we seem to have lost our guest, but it was the end, and we really did cover everything. So I guess it's okay to say GaryGautier.com, and Gautier is Gautier. It's like a French spelling. And yes, we did officially lose Gary, but that's okay. Thank you, Gary, if you're listening in Mexico. If not, of course, our archives always end up on the Eartheart YouTube channel, courtesy of Rick Allen in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He does all the work on the YouTube channel, and he gets all the love for being a great friend and a great supporter of not only the Eartheart radio show, but my Sunday evening show, The Church of Rock, which is on tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. I want to say happy birthday to Red Haggerty, who's listening in Williams, Oregon. Brother Red, you just tried to call me during my show, but I'll call you afterwards to wish you a happy birthday. KSKQ recognizes the nonprofit community support of the Klamath-Siskiyou Wildland Center. As a voice for wild nature, KS Wild's mission is focused on protecting public lands in the Klamath-Siskiyou region of Southwest Oregon and Northwest California. Community support for KS Wild helps ensure a legacy of wild rivers, ancient forests, and biodiversity. Learn more about KS Wild's wildlife and forest conservation programs and efforts to restore public lands at www.kswild.org. KSKQ thanks KS Wild and listeners like you for supporting community radio.
Be here now. Eartheart Radio, KSKQ.
I've got a song I would like to play for you, my friends.
Angels, avatars, sages, yogis.
But first, my CD keeps jumping ahead on me. Stop doing that. I've got a song I would like to play before we spotlight our saint today. Actually, this is, it is called The Song for the Soul, and it's a pretty neat little tune. And here's my little list. Here you go. It's called Songs for the Soul by Tonantzin. Tonantzin is in Aztec tradition the great mother goddess who bestows life. So Songs for the Soul, Tonantzin. It's good stuff. You are listening to the Eartheart Radio Show on KSKQ, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Tonantzin, we Tonantzin, ipalemuani doyolo paki, tlatzlo kamati Tonantzin, ipalemuani doyolo paki, Tlatzlo kamatli Tonantzin, we Tonantzin, we Tonantzin, ipalemuani doyolo paki, Tlatzlo kamatli Tonantzin, ipalemuani doyolo paki, tlatzlo kamati Tonantzin, we Tonantzin, we Tonantzin, ipalemuani doyolo paki, tlatzlo kamati Tonantzin, ipalemuani doyolo paki, tlatzlo kamati Tonantzin, 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 we Tonantzin, we
2 p.m. Pacific Time. You're listening to the Eartheart Radio Show with your host, Derek Moody, on KSKQ Radio.
Thanks for listening, my friends. I have a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. You are what you believe in. You become that which you believe you can become. Another quote from the Bhagavad Gita. Through selfless service, you will always be fruitful and find the fulfillment of your desires. One more quote, my friends. This is from the late, great Ram Dass. It is important to expect nothing, to take every experience, including the negative ones, as merely steps on the path, and to proceed. Words of wisdom. Long live Baba Ram Dass.
Saints, angels, avatars, sages, yogis, holy men, medicine women, helpers, elders, revolutionaries, and advocates of love. Today we honor and show love, respect, and gratitude.
That's right. Every single week, I like to pay tribute to another high-frequency soul temporarily residing in a human being's body. Today is no exception, my brothers and sisters. Today I'm talking about Saint Catherine of Siena. Born March 25th, 1347, Saint Catherine of Siena was a lay member of the Dominican order. She was a mystic, activist, and author who had a great influence on Italian literature and the Catholic Church. She was canonized in 1461. She was born and raised in Siena, Italy, and at an early age wanted to devote herself to God against the will of her parents. She joined the Dominican tertiaries. She made herself known very quickly by being marked by mystical phenomena such as invisible stigmata and a mystical marriage. She was declared patron saint of Rome in 1866 and of Italy in 1939. She was the first woman, along with Teresa of Avila, to be declared a doctor of the Church on October 4th, 1970, by Pope Paul VI. She was also proclaimed patron saint of Europe in 1999 by Pope John Paul II. Catherine of Siena is one of the outstanding figures of medieval Catholicism. She carried out many missions entrusted by the Pope, something quite rare for a woman in the Middle Ages. Catherine is said by her confessor and biographer, Raymond of Capua, to have had her first vision of Christ when she was 5 or 6 years old. At age 7, she vowed to give her whole life to God. She eventually donned the black and white habit of the other order of Saint Dominic. As a tertiary, she lived outside the convent and at home with her family like before. And she lived in almost total silence and solitude in the family home. Her custom of giving away clothing and food without asking anyone's permission cost her family significantly, but she requested nothing for herself. At age 21, Catherine experienced what she described in her letters as a, quote, mystical marriage with Jesus. She began helping the ill and the poor, where she took care of them in hospitals or homes. In Pisa, 1935, she received the stigmata, visible at Catherine's request only to herself. For many years, she had accustomed herself to a rigorous abstinence. She received the Holy Eucharist almost daily. She was unable to eat properly. From the beginning of 1380, Catherine could neither eat nor swallow water. She lost the use of her legs. Catherine of Siena died in Rome on April 29, 1380, at the age of 33. Having 8 days earlier suffered a massive stroke which paralyzed her from the waist down. Her very last words were, "Father, into your hands I commend my soul and my spirit." Catherine ranks high among the mystics and spiritual writers of the church. She remains highly respected for her spiritual writings and political boldness. And that does wrap up my chat about Saint Catherine of Siena. I hope you found that interesting. Thank you to my regular listeners, Doug Shields and Chris Remington Strow. Brenda Rosh, thank you so much for tuning in every week from Medford. And anyone else that listens each week, I appreciate you. If you could kindly subscribe to the Eartheart YouTube channel someday, up to you. It's there. It's spelled Eartheart, Eartheart. All of our shows are archived there. Anyone's able to view them if they would wish. I have another song I would like to play right now, my friends, just for you. This is a song, it's the prayer of St. Catherine to Siena. It's called Prayer of St. Catherine of Siena to Mary, right here at the Eartheart Radio Show and KSKQ.
Established in August of 2019, you're listening to the Eartheart Radio Show with Derek Moody on KSKQ.
Thank you for being here at KSKQ Radio. Moody with you, the good Reverend, having a lot of fun doing the Eartheart Radio Show each weekend at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Thank you to KSKQ for being here. Locals Guide is proud to be an underwriter of KSKQ. Locals Guide is committed to community building through the creation of positive media. They offer a monthly magazine, mobile travel guides, and visitor information kiosks, which offer timely and accurate local information to people just like you, all around the world. KSKQ thanks Locals Guide and listeners like you for supporting community radio. And my friends, once again, I do thank you for being here.
Please let go of your fear. Positive news is here. Things aren't as bad as it seems, no matter what they say. News with an agenda is meant to instill fear. True news can instill hope.
That's right, my friends. Positive news time here at the Eartheart Radio Show as I'm secretly queuing up the next song to play after. It's not easy having one set of hands, man, I tell you. Positive news number one, Food Network star, chef, and lifetime restaurateur Guy Fieri has raised more than $22 million to help restaurant employees that have been unable to work during the COVID-19 shutdowns across the country. Fieri has created the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund, into which has poured large donations from the heaviest hitting CEOs involved in the restaurant business, like Pepsi, Coke, and Uber Eats. Fieri's fund has already provided workers across the country with $500 grants to help them get through this difficult period. And more flows into their pockets every day. Bill Murray is another celebrity to join the Herculean effort to raise money for the Restaurant Employee Fund. A webcast nacho-making competition between Guy Fieri and Bill Murray and their sons, dubbed the Nacho Average Showdown, featured Guy and Bill and their sons, Hunter Fieri and Homer Murray, squaring away in a four-way nacho-making competition live on the internet, and of course officiated by basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal. This took place last Friday, just 2 days ago. I was trying to figure out what happened with the results, so I guess that's something that anyone could do by hitting Google. Who won the Nacho Average Showdown? Was it Bill Murray or Guy Fieri and his son? Fieri is urging everyone to order from mom and pop restaurants, which likely will be the type of businesses that suffer the most. Some provide curbside pickup and takeaway orders, but be safe, my friends. Be smart, but do try to support mom and pop shops. Positive news number two. 3 young best friends who live next door from each other in England can finally play together again after one of their crafty mothers turned a section of their garden fence into a perspex window. Yep, since the novel coronavirus forced their families into self-isolation, 3-year-old Arlo and 2-year-old Annabella had been missing their pal Leo, who lives next door to their home in Yorkshire. As a means of uniting the kids while still respecting social distancing guidelines, the siblings' mom came up with the idea of cutting a hole out of their shared backyard fence and installing a transparent window right in the middle. Well, it worked. The kids have been finding it difficult, not to see each other, and they kept climbing the rabbit cage, which is next to the fence, in order to get a peek of one another. So the mothers decided to make the kids a little window so they could see each other. They installed a perspex panel after cutting the wood with a circular saw. They also bought whiteboard non-permanent markers, so now The kids can also draw on that together. The kids are at the window all day, according to their mothers, and they're there every day when they're home. So I guess they do love it, one of the moms concluded. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. Just think outside the box, right? You're listening to the Eartheart Radio Show at KSKQ Radio. Positive news number 3. Rival gangs come together in South Africa. South Africa has seen a 75% drop in violent crime during the coronavirus pandemic. 75%? That's a lot. Now, the rival gang members in Cape Town are teaming up to collect and distribute food and essential goods to those in need. Quote, "What we are seeing happen here is literally a miracle," said Andy Steele Smith, a pastor who works with gang members in the community. Before the pandemic, South Africa had some of the highest violent crime rates on the continent. But now, new circumstances have created changes that are leading to a silver lining. The government has imposed some of the toughest quarantine rules in the world, including banning alcohol and cigarette sales. Imagine being there and being addicted to cigarettes, huh? Nope, no cigs for you. I'm so glad I don't smoke anymore. The economy is taking a beating. People and gangs are starting, as a result, they're coming together. They realize we have to eat instead of fight. The gangs have ceased the fighting. They're providing food and vital supplies to their neighbors now, like soap, things like that. It's really a beautiful thing, man. When people realize there's no separation except in our own minds, we can move mountains and maybe eliminate hunger, right? The illusion of separation is just that, illusion.
Peace on Earth. You're at the Eartheart Radio Show on KSKQ. KSKQ.
Willie Nelson from the Stardust album, Don't Get Around Much Anymore. I've been playing tracks off that album for about the past 3 weeks, so maybe I should chill, huh? Unless somebody has a complaint or no complaints, we could do another track next week. Who knows? You never know, right? Next week, Death of a Wombat, and I'm still trying to figure out what saint that I will spotlight next week. The Eartheart Radio Show YouTube channel exists, and so does the Eartheart Radio Facebook page. If you have ideas, I'm always open to music suggestions, guest ideas, and song requests. Thanks for being here. I'm Reverend Derek Moody. Much love.
You've been listening to Eartheart Radio with your host, Shankara Das. Eartheart Radio is produced by Shankara Das in association with Sister Tracy and Krishna Consciousness. Please tune in every Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for more Eartheart Radio.